Hello everyone, welcome to part 1 in this new tutorial series. Today I'll be showing you how to make your camera and character aim. I'll be using the third person template today, but you're welcome to start with your own projects. I'll be using custom animations which I've provided for the mannequin in the description. I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get started. Alright, in our project we're going to go and open up our character blueprint. In our character we're going to go to our camera boom and we're going to adjust a few settings here. First I'm going to go and set the target arm length to 250 and I'm going to change the socket offset Y to 20 and the Z to 30. This is just to give an overall better third person camera view than the default one. Next we're going to set our probe size to 5 and we're going to go down to the camera lag section and we're going to enable these two settings. And for the camera lag speed, I'm going to set this to 8 and the rotation to 15. These are the best settings that I found worked for the project. Alright, next for the aiming, we're going to go and create our event tick. And next we're going to create 5 variables. One is going to be a float, another is going to be a boolean, and then we're going to do 3 vectors. So with the vector variables, these are going to be our current camera location, and this will be a vector. Next will be our desired camera location, and the final vector will be our default camera location. Oops, I misspelled location. There we go. Next, we're going to create our float value. This will be our interpolation speed for when we are basically aiming and then stop aiming, how fast our camera is going to go back to the different states. So this will be a float. Next, we're going to create a boolean. This boolean will be aiming. Alright, now that we have that set up, we can go back to our event tick and we are going to get our current camera location, and that will be a get reference, and then our desired, and we're going to be using the vInterp2 node. What this does is it gets 2 vector values and it goes from the current value to the target value based on a delta time, which will be our delta world seconds. And then this is where we're going to use our camera interpolation speed, and we're going to plug that in there. Next, out of our return value, we're going to set our current camera location to our vInterp return value. Next, we're going to get our camera boom, and we're going to set our socket offset. Now we're going to go and split the structure pins of both of these vectors, and we're going to connect them except for the X. Now out of our camera boom again, we're going to set target arm length. And I'm just going to reroute this to organize it. Now out of our current camera location X value, this is where we're going to plug it in to our target arm length. And that's it for the event tick. I'm just going to go ahead and comment this. Alright, next I'm going to create a new graph. I'm going to call this input graph. This is where I'm going to keep all the inputs for the project. First one being is our aiming input. I'm just going to use the right mouse button. Here we're going to set our aiming variable on pressed. We're going to set this to true. And on released, we're going to set this to false. Next, we're going to set our desired camera location variables. Just go and copy this both times, or copy this once down to the released area. Now for this one, we're going to drag out our default camera location variable. and we're going to drag that into our pin right here. And for the aiming location on our X, we're going to do 100. For our Y, we're going to do 60. 60. For our Z, we're also going to do 60. Next, we're going to set our interpolation speed. So when we start aiming, we're going to set this to 5. And whenever we stop aiming, we're going to set this to 1. What this is doing is it's going to more quickly get to our aiming location. And then when we stop aiming, it'll smoothly go back to our default location. Next, we're going to drag out our character movement. Out of our character movement, we're going to set orient rotation to movement. And we're going to set this to true. Next, out of our character movement again, we're going to set use controller desired rotation. And we're also going to set this to true. I'm just going to go and reroute this quickly. Now you can go ahead and copy. Now you can go ahead and copy this and paste it down below. And actually, I'm sorry, this top one we're going to set to false, and then this bottom one will be true, and then our desired rotation will be false. Now on our variables, we are going to set every one of these to 250, and then 20, and then 30. You'll notice these are the same values that we have on our camera boom currently. So go ahead and copy this, and we can just go ahead and paste this into every one of these. And for interpolation speed, we're going to set this to 5 by default. For these values, you guys can change these to whatever you're liking. This is just what I'll be using. Alright, next what we're going to do is we're going to create a blueprint interface. This interface is just going to be so that we can get information and functions from our character. So we're just going to call this BPI get character, or I'm going to do BPI get player. And on the outputs, we're going to create a new output, and we're going to set this to BP third person character, or whichever character you're using. And I'm going to rename this to return value. Now back in our character, we're going to go over to our class settings. We're going to go to implemented interfaces, and we're going to add that interface we just created. Once you do that, a interfaces tab will show up over here to the left. We're going to go and double click on get player. Out of our return value, we're going to drag out of that, and we're going to type in self. There we go. Next, we're going to set up our animations, but before we do that, I'm just going to quickly create a folder specifically for this series or what have you. I'm just going to call this underscore content, and I'm going to create some folders. First one will be assets. Second will be blueprints. And in our blueprints, we're going to go and drag in our interface, our character, and the default game mode. Next, in our assets folder, I'm going to create a new folder called character. In here, I'm going to create a new folder called animations. And now in here, I'm going to import the animations. Once you've selected all the animations, we're going to go over to the skeleton, and we're going to click on sk_mannequin, and then we're going to click import all. Alright, now that the animations are imported, today we're just going to be focusing on these aim ones. First, we're going to open up one of our aiming animations, and in here we're going to scroll down in the asset details to additive anim type, we're going to be setting this to mesh space and then selected frame. This frame animation will be our aim_f_pose. We're going to drag this into here, and we're going to do that same thing for the rest of these aiming animations. Now that that's done, we can create our aim offset. So you can do that by going to the animation tab, clicking aim offset. We're going to create this aim offset for the mannequin skeleton, and I'm just going to call this AO beam aim. Go ahead and open that up. In here on our horizontal axis, we're going to be naming this to left/right. And on our vertical axis, we're going to be naming this up/down. And on both of these, we're going to set the minimum axis value to -90 and the maximum axis value to 90. Next, scrolling down, there will be a preview base pose underneath additive settings. In here, we're going to drag in our pose animation. Next, we're going to add in our aiming animations. So right here in the center at 0, 0, this is going to be our front animation, front animation. Next, we're going to add in our front up animation. This will be 0 on the left and right, and then 90 for the up and down. Next, we're going to add in our front down pose. This will be 0 on the left and right, and then -90 on the up and down. Next, we're going to add in our front left. This is going to be -90 for the left and right, and then 0 on up and down. Next, we're going to add our front right animation. This will be 90 on the left and right, and then 0 on the up and down. After you guys have added your animations, you can see by holding down Control and moving your cursor around, the character now aims up and down or left and right. After that, we're going to open up our third person's animation blueprint, which you can find underneath characters and then mannequins and then animations. And I'm going to go ahead and rename this to player APB. Opening this up, we're going to make some changes. Firstly, in the event graph, by default, it will be casting to the default character class. We're going to be replacing this with that interface we created. So just go ahead and type in BPI get player. On our target, we're going to plug this into the same node, get owning actor. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to reconnect these two together. Now on our character variable, on the variable type, instead of character, we're going to change this to our BPI third person character. Just go and do change variable type. Once that's done, go ahead and close this window. And now we can connect our return value to the character set variable. And I'm just going to move this up. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to go down here to our sequence. We're going to add a new pin, and we're going to get our character variable. Out of this, we're going to go and get our aiming boolean. So get aiming. From this, we're going to create a new variable in the animation blueprint by promoting it. And we're going to name this the same thing, aiming. And go ahead and add a rewrote node and connect this to your sequencer. Or sequence, I'm sorry. And I'm going to go ahead and comment this. And I'm going to make this slightly bigger. Next, we're going to create a few variables. First one is going to be pitch. Next is going to be AO alpha. Both of these variables we're going to set to floats. First, we're going to drag out our pitch variable, and we are going to set this. Next, we're going to go and get our try get pawn owner. Then out of this, we're going to get the control rotation. And we're going to go and split this return value so that it's now floats. Out of our pitch, we're going to add a subtract. In the subtract, we're going to subtract 360. Next, out of our pitch, we're going to get a greater than equal. And in this, we're going to add 180. Next, we're going to add a select float. Now, in our greater equals node, we're going to drag our Boolean return value to pick A. Now, if this is true, we're going to use A, which subtracts 360. If it's false, we're just going to use our base pitch value. Now, on our set pitch, we're going to connect the return value to the set pitch variable. All right, now that's done. Next, we're going to set our AO alpha variable. Here, we're going to get a f interp2 node. In our current, we're going to select we're going to get our AO alpha variable, and in our target, we're going to drag out and get a select float. For our pick A Boolean, we're going to get our aiming variable. If we are aiming, our alpha will be 1. If we're not, it'll be 0. On our delta time, we're going to get our world seconds. And for our speed, we're going to set this to 5. Now our return value into our variable. And we're all done in the event graph. Now we can go to our anim graph. Here, we'll be disconnecting this from our output pose. Just like this. Next, we're going to go and copy this locomotion cached pose. And we're going to go and paste that. Plug this into here. And we're going to rename this to main states. And we actually don't want our default slot in IK here in this. So just go and hold Control from here and plug this into there. Now you should have something that looks like this. Next, we're just going to drag this off to the side because we don't need it right now. Now we're going to go and get a reference to that cached pose by typing in get main. Or just typing in main states. There we go. Next, we're going to add a layered blend per bone. In this blend per bone, we're going to go under layer setup, index 0, and on our branch filters, we're going to add a new one, and this will be spine 01 with a blend depth of 1. And then we're going to set our mesh space rotation blend to true. Next, we're going to add a apply additive. Here in our asset browser, we're going to drag in our pose. Now our pose will be our base. And in our additive area, we're going to create a make dynamic additive. We're going to plug this into here. Set our alpha to 0.5. Now for our base, we're going to add in a input pose. For our additive, we're going to add in our main states. Next, we're going to apply our apply additive node into our blend pose 0. Next, we're going to add one more pin. In this one, we're going to go and copy exactly what we just made. It's going to fail to copy this input pose, so we're just going to add a new one by typing in input pose. Nope, that's not it. Input pose. There we go. And on this one, we're going to set our alpha to 0.1. And we're going to drag this into blend poses 1. Now on our blend per node, blend per bone node, we're going to go to our branch filters. We're going to add a new one and then one more. On these will be our shoulder bones, which for the mannequin is the clavicle L and clavicle R. After that, we're going to go and drag in our aim offset down here in the asset browser. We're going to plug this into base pose. I'm going to add a reroute node to just organize it a little bit. On our up down pin, we're going to drag in our pitch. In our alpha, we're going to drag in our AO alpha variable. Next, we can re-add these back, just like so. I'm sorry, before this, we're going to want to add a blend by bool. And we're going to add our aiming to the active value. And if we are aiming, we're going to use this logic we just added. If not, then we're simply just going to use the main states pose. Now for both of these, I'm going to make these 2.3. And I'm going to plug this back into the slot now. Compile, save. Now in our character, I'm just going to go to the mesh. I'm going to set this to the player APB. And I'm going to set this to the Manny. And this is the final result. I hope you enjoyed. If you need support or just a place to hang out, my Discord is in the description. Additionally, if you'd like to support me, I have a Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.